Hello, everybody. This is Ben Warner here with KT Thomas, or better known as Khalil Thomas. We are live with Wildcat Wisdom Episode 2. How are you doing, Khalil?
I'm great, coming off a big win. So it's a happy recap tonight on
Yes,
the Wildcat Wisdom.
definitely, man. Let's get started with the highlights. So this week, Tulsa 1-0 traveling to Chicago, who lost last week. And it starts off really, really bad for Chicago as Gabriel Manning with he breaks a couple tackles and he is gone for the touchdown, outracing all the Wildcat special teamers. It was a horrible play to start the game.
Yeah, this is a backbreaker in the first 15 seconds. Watching this game, you're like, oh, this is you just had flashbacks to the Mexico City game. So terrible beginning, and it got better, as you can see later on in the highlights.
Yeah, and Gabriel Manning, he was a force all game. It will bring it up a little later, but just special teams definitely not what you want to start off with. And special teams does get better also, as you'll see later on.
Yeah, it's weird because we always talk about offense, defense, but special teams in this game became a huge deal for both teams.
And at 10-0, and then Ron Hoff makes a huge interception here, like he did last week, possibly. Like last week, he did not. It was a momentum switch that didn't work so well, but this week, it really worked well. Because the next play, Shane Varner deep, what a catch there by Shane Varner.
Yeah, it's the interception into that catch. That was if that pass was completed, that would have set up a whole kind of thought process like what we do now. But Varner made the catch, got us deep into Tulsa territory, and on our way to hopefully a score, as we're going to see soon too.
Yeah, and first play out of the second quarter, down inside the red zone, they're going to hand it off to Ash Odom, and he is in for the touchdown, walks right in. Easy block the blocks were great right there by the offensive line, Mikey Improta, and the tight ends.
Yeah, the game against Mexico City, you really didn't hear Odom's name too much, but this week was his week.
And the next possession, Ron Hoff makes a huge block punt right there.
Hoff was the MVP of the game. I know Odom got the player of the game, but Ron Hoff was the unsung hero of this game this week.
3rd and 16. ETK get it fired over to JC Torres. He walks into the end zone for the touchdown. I mean, huge play there on 3rd and 16. Instead of getting a field goal, you get a touchdown.
We talked about King last week, rebounding from a 5-interception game. This was his game this week. He needed a big game, and he came through in a clutch, and a great catch from Torres to run straight at the gut and take the hit going into the end zone.
On the next possession, with 0 seconds to go in the half, he launches it deep to Gabriel Manning. I don't know what happened here, and he's going to walk in for the touchdown. You look back to last week, Mexico City scored at the end of the half to go up by 10. They tie it up here, and you lose all the momentum.
Yeah, I was not expecting this play at all, and we talked through text. We were playing way too up. There was a press going. They threw it deep, and that touchdown at the end of the half really kind of swung the momentum back over to Tulsa when we thought we had the lead going into the half.
And that's the second week in a row Tulsa did that, and you brought it up right there. The coverage way too short. Here we go. He's going to launch it deep in the second half to Gabriel Manning again. He's a beast. I mean, that's his 3rd touchdown of the game. The secondary, they played well in some circumstances, but you can't have 2 big plays like that for their best wide receiver.
Especially from one guy. Gabriel Manning had a game this week, not just with the kickoff return, but receiving. He was unstoppable in this game. This is the one guy that hurt Chicago immensely throughout the entire ball game.
Yeah, he had 4 receptions for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns along with the kick return. So 24-17, 3rd and 7 here. You want to get the first down. He's going to fire it over to Coach Varner for the touchdown. A great play to get 7.
And the way King stepped up in the pocket, you didn't see that against Mexico City in week 1. His ability to step up, show his agility, find an open man, and it's a touchdown, tie game in the 3rd quarter.
And that was key right there. The offensive line gave him enough protection today to make plays like that.
And listen, it was needed. Like I said, he stood in the pocket a lot against Mexico City, and he got hit a ton last week.
4th quarter, another punt by Tulsa. Ron Hoff again blocks it, puts us inside the 5-yard line. A heck of a game for him.
Special teams became the difference maker in this game. Ron Hoff, 2 block punts. Who knew special teams would have this big an impact?
And then Ash Odom walks in for another touchdown.
Odom made his presence felt, and it seemed like the play calling really went back to what Chicago's known for, running the ball and handing off to Ash Odom.
And this was to end the game right here after going on a 5-minute drive. A very, very risky pass, but it's high risk, high reward, and it ends up being a very high rewarding play as Chicago will kick a field goal after and win 34-24.
One of those plays where you kind of stand up like, okay, we're good. That's exactly what happened. Why are you throwing the ball? Okay, good catch. But that sealed the game and gave Chicago the first win of the season, 1-1.
Yes, and as we look at stats here for Tulsa, Nickens throws for 11 for 21, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Robinson only rushing for 39 yards. And there it is. The player of the game for Tulsa is Gabriel Manning. 4 receptions, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. DJ Majesty, 8 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. Their next week's opponent is Louisiana at 2-0. Chicago Wildcats, E.T. King having a much better game this week than he did, throwing for a 242, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. Ash Odom also, compared to last week's rushing yards, over 100 yards this week and a touchdown. Torres having a big game with 9 receptions, 89 yards. And Mar Rivers, 3 sacks today. And next week, St. Louis will travel to Chicago at 1-1.
Yeah, the running game established the passing game. Last week, we kind of came out and threw the ball a ton. We got done early, and then that's when Mexico City started bringing the pressure on the King. This week, it was a good mix of run and pass, which opened up that passing game. Hence, you saw E.T. King. Not great, not big numbers. I'm talking 400 yards, 242, 27 of 36, 3 touchdowns. It was a great game all around defensively, and I kind of put the pressure on us defensive linemen to put the pressure on and kind of disrupt things. We did that in a ton. Rivers, a huge, huge game, 3 sacks. We had the interceptions. This was an all-around great game for the Wildcats in week 2 against Tulsa.
Yeah, if you look at you guys in the defensive line, last week, Matt Wilson was standing in the pocket for 5-6 seconds and could easily just pick apart the secondary. This week, Nickens did not have that time, and he was rattled all game. And you called it last week. You said the defensive line needed to step up, and that's what you guys did. The other factor in this game, special teams. Obviously, there was a bad play to start the game, but after that, 2 block punts leading to 14 points. That's huge in any game.
And that's when you get a turnover, when you get a big play like a block punt, you have to capitalize on that play. We were able to do that. 14 points, 2 touchdowns. Listen, without those 2 touchdowns, different type of game. But you're able to capitalize on those mistakes and get those points, which made it was a wild game to watch because at the end of the first half, you definitely felt some momentum leave Chicago. But then the third quarter kind of came in, especially after that block punt. The Mensa came right back. So it was kind of back and forth, and Chicago just put our foot on their throats.
Yes, and a big shout out to the coaching staff this week, especially on offense. A much more balanced game plan with rushing and then setting up the pass. It just the blocking. Myself, Coach Varner, Mikey and Proto leading the way. He was knocking people on the ground, and it just gave Odom the space to run. And then once he hits the open field, he's juking people out. He's trucking people. He's a great runner. And if he can get the blocks, he's going to have over 100 yards every game.
And not to mention, when you get the running game going, and you saw towards the end of the game, they're just feeding him. That wears the defense down. So as the game's kind of waning on, especially in that fourth quarter, that defense got tired, got exhausted, and Odom broke a couple big runs in that fourth quarter, which helped seal the game.
Yeah, especially it was about 7 minutes to go, and they went on Chicago. We went on that big 5-6 minute drive to really solidify the win. The blocking was excellent on that drive. The only con I really took away, my bad takeaway, was the secondary. There was obviously 3 interceptions, but you can't have a play like what happened at the end of the half in any game. I mean, it's week 2, but if you're in a game where your season's on the line and you have a play like that, you got to play perfect in the secondary later on in the year. You can't have big passes over the middle like that.
Yeah, and I was going into that game. There's a huge difference between 1-1 and 0-2. I feel like another big play from Manning would have made the Wildcats 0-2. I feel like that secondary, you got to tighten it up. You got to, especially the over the top stuff. We've been getting beat a lot doing that stuff. So going into the game against St. Louis, you have to tighten up over the top, make sure those deep plays aren't there. Because as you see, if we keep everything in front of us and keep it limited, keep them 36, 37s, things are good. When things are busted in the secondary, that's when all hell breaks loose.
And a great win for Chicago. We would be moving on to our interview section here, but unfortunately, our first guest of the show, E.T. King, wasn't able to make it. So we thought about talking about our experiences so far on the Chicago Wildcats. So, Khalil, how has it been being a Chicago Wildcat?
It's been interesting. This is, as someone who's kind of watched from afar for the last few months, I was very curious about joining the league and just being with the guys, talking to you, talking to Mikey, talking to Shannon on the phone. It's a really good organization and a lot of great guys in it who are really team first guys who want to win. And I think that's the big thing with hopefully finding a team in the SFL that really wants to win and wants to do the best they can. So I think, my time here has been amazing up to this point.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I mean, Mikey Improta, he's the best. I mean, he's always in the chat. He's always responding to messages whenever you need positivity. I mean, he is such a great teammate, and it's someone you would want to ride into battle with. I mean, each and every week, he's a great person.
I mean, that's the thing. You just said it. You want a team. You want guys that you're going to go into battle. I think the term is you want to go into a foxhole with them is the term.
Yep.
The team that we have and the guys that we talk to in the chat and the guys that put up memes, especially the wrestling memes, I like those. Those are guys you would go into foxhole with. And I think this is the team, and I think the owner Varner did a great job putting together a squad of guys that want to win and that have the same type of goals.
Yep.
So this 1-1, listen, after our first game, it was interesting. You would think that we would be kind of down, but everyone's like, next game, we got it. Don't worry about it. And it's almost forgotten about. You don't see that often. So it's just a really cool thing to see, and it definitely reflected this week. So, go Wildcats. Let's go.
Yeah, and you got to really stay positive after the losses. They're bound to come. I mean, you're not going undefeated every year, and even down 10-0 in the first quarter, this team rallied and bounced back and didn't really give up. And that's a team I'm happy to be on, fighting to the last second. Even last week, when you're down by about 20, you're still scoring touchdowns at the end. So there is fight in this team, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better. And I think I said it last week. This is competitive. This is going to be a competitive season in the SFL. So loss is going to come, but wins are going to come as well. So you got to take the wins and the losses equally every single week.
All right, and we will I'm going to pull up the league scores. We're going to go to our league portion of the show now. A couple good games this week around the league.
Yeah, there was actually the game I was curious about that, I think the phrase that was used was a humbling. And I think we talked about Atlanta last week, and I hyped Atlanta up. I take full responsibility. I hyped up Atlanta to be the best team ever.
Yeah, we both did.
And they got humbled this week, but you're going to go into that right now. Go ahead.
First game of the week, London, Louisiana. London down 28-7, but they made a furious comeback in the second half, made it a competitive game, but Louisiana winning 31-28.
That's the thing about getting down really early. It's hard to really storm back. You're down 28-7, you get close, but when you're down by that much, you have to stop the other team over and over again. That becomes almost impossible. It was a great comeback by London, but Louisiana was able to hold on.
And that moves Louisiana to 2-0. It's one of the only 4 teams in the SFL still undefeated. Next, Fort Worth finally getting their first win. As an expansion franchise, they beat Queen City 31-17. It's a good, happy for them. It's always great to see new teams win.
Congratulations to Fort Worth for their first win. Listen, this might be the one team Fort Worth could be a sneaky pick to make the playoffs and sneaky pick to make a run in these playoffs as well. So I'm going to say keep your eyes on Fort Worth throughout the whole season.
Next, we move to Vancouver beating Lone Star 30-7. I was a little bit shocked at this. I know Vancouver's a great team, but Lone Star, I expected a little more out of them in this game.
Yeah, I remember we played Vancouver in a scrimmage in the preseason, and I was like, well, Vancouver, I don't really know. We kind of, but 30-7 against a really game squad. I think this is a big win for Vancouver, and you see a theme. I think from this game going forward, you see a theme these next couple of games of just teams running away with these games and everything kind of flowing and clicking on all cylinders for a lot of these teams coming up in our update.
Next, Las Vegas get a big win at home, 44-27. Carolina coming off a close win last week, but just didn't have it this game.
Yeah, this is the game I think I watched halfway through. I got in late. I'm scared of Las Vegas. About Las Vegas, they're a sneaky good team. That's another team. I think Fort Worth and Las Vegas would be my picks to kind of make a run in these playoffs. Yeah,
Slim Shady has done a great job building that team, and Tom Rahman is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Jacksonville beating Florida 27-7. Florida now 0-2. Jacksonville undefeated still. Charleston, Baltimore. This is probably my game of the week. I mean, the quarterbacks were on fire in this game. At one point, I was in the stats truck. At one point in this game, I think it was the second quarter, third quarter, the quarterbacks were over 85% in completions. The defenses are hyped on both sides. I mean, Charleston statistics showed last year that they're one of the best defenses in the league. This week, them and Baltimore, there was no defense in sight. It was all offense.
997 total yards between both teams.
Yeah,
that's a shootout. That's what we call a shootout.
It was.
Now listen, when we get down to the season, playoff time, the shootouts win championships. I'm a believer of the defense winning championships, but this was an offensive display that I've never seen as someone who saw the XFL from the outside. This was a crazy game to watch. And our own Mikey and Pro called this game too. So this was a game where he was just hyped up the entire game because there was just so much happening.
And there were no interceptions thrown. The amount of times they threw the ball and there were no interceptions. I mean, the quarterbacks were just on fire that day. Next game, Atlanta. We both said last week that this is the team to beat. They're gonna have a good run. It's only week 2, but a big loss to Sussex Falls, who is a team to watch out for. That's one of my teams I think is going to make a deep run. Sussex Falls, 2-0. They got a really balanced team, and their run game is it's legit.
Yeah, I think the phrase was humbling. Atlanta, a big win in week 1, opening game of the season. Dynasty had a really good game. You talked about before, losses are bound to happen. No one's expected Atlanta to lose by 21 points. Yeah, Dynasty threw for a lot of yards, threw for 2 picks. But once again, this is a growing experience, especially for a quarterback like Brian Dynasty, to kind of get better as the season goes on. Yeah, especially after last week. I think this is kind of his coming down to earth game. But it's only week 2, so obviously he has time to improve. This next game, Portland, very close game. Kramer Jackson, who in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, is the best kicker in the game. Another game-winning field goal. He's never missed in his career. There's nothing else to say. He's one of the best, if not the best. What do you look up? Is there like a record for – you say he hasn't missed in his career. Is there a record for most consecutive field goals made? Because I feel like he's either at the record, close to the record, or breaking said record. At this point
I mean, to not miss a field goal. I mean, he kicked 7 field goals in a game last year and did not miss a kick. as far as he's been in the league. I mean, that's kudos to him. He knows his craft and he's a great player. Next game, Mexico City, who we faced last week, who had a tough defense, gives up 45 points to St. Louis. Javier Vasquez throwing 7 picks last week. Clean slate for him. He had a great game this week, and they win 45-37.
Yeah, going into week 2, you thought Mexico City was going to kind of keep that defensive intensity that they had against us last week. It was an 8-point loss, but a lot of points, a lot of yards given up. So, you're seeing a tale of two defenses. Seeing defenses had in week 1 and week 2. Come week 3, what are you going to see? Are you going to see the same tenacious defense you saw in week 1, or are you kind of going to see kind of this Swiss cheesy type of defense in week 3?
In Arizona, winning at home over Houston, 32-13, and we were the last game of the week. We won 34-24.
Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football, I must add. We were on Monday Night Football, 9:30 prime time.
Prime time game. Perfect slot for us. Stat leaders in passing. Wilson from Mexico City has thrown for 774 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Then Bryant Dynasty, who still has over 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, but they're 2 picks this week. Tom Rahman, great game this week by him. 706 yards, 6 touchdowns, and now 4 interceptions on his year. E.T. King, our quarterback, had 242, but had a solid game, limited the interceptions, only had 1 this week. So he has the same amount.
And not to cut you off, I think
what
we saw from E.T. King this week was what we want to see from him. We want to see E.T. King he doesn't have to throw for 300, 350, 400 yards a game.
No.
He was able to kind of make those throws that he needed to make, step up in the pocket. He threw for I think he had like 9 incompletions the whole game. The numbers weren't big, but he was efficient. I think that's the key to winning in this league. You don't need a quarterback to throw 400 yards. If you have a quarterback that's just efficient and makes the throws that he has to make, you're probably good to go.
Yeah, and you limit those chances for turnovers by not throwing it deep down the field for trying to get over 500 yards or having a big passing day. The win's more important, and to have a balanced offense, that's key. And Mike Dazza, 668 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception on his year. He had a great game this week against Charleston. QBR, Wilson and Dazzo are at the top. Tom Rahman, TD Drew are both tied, and rounding them up is Tyree from Sussex Falls. Rushing, Hart, like I said, from Sussex Falls, 357 yards, leading the way in the league. Also has 5 touchdowns. I mean, he's having a great year so far.
Yeah, listen, our guy's not here yet. Our guy will be on this list sooner than later.
Yes, he will.
But I'm definitely going to see the running games are getting a lot better. And I feel like the teams are starting to with the exception of that one shootout game that you did stats for.
Yeah.
The running games are a really major part of each of these teams. And I think that's going to be big, especially when we get down the stretch in playoff time and stretch time.
Yeah, and offensive line and fullbacks and tight ends blocking, those are really key. And some teams this year have went for offensive linemen. So it will be interesting to see those teams and where their running backs end up at the end of the season. Then Swearingen with 304 yards, McChesney from Denver, 272 yards, and Reggie Streeter from Louisiana rounding the list up, 269 yards. As I said before, Colin Hart is leading the league in touchdowns. McChesney and Swearingen are tied with 4 TDs, and there are multiple players at 3 touchdowns. Receiving, Gabriel Manning, he's at top. We saw it this week. He absolutely obliterated our secondary. I mean, only 4 receptions. I mean, if he had perhaps more targets downfield, he might have had more, but it's already only 2 games in, and he almost has 500 yards.
But isn't it interesting how you have Mexico City and they're running a lot of like quick out plays, and Tulsa was just like, okay, listen, Manning, you just go deep. I'm just going to throw it to you.
Yeah.
It's a tale of 2 passing games in 2 weeks. It was really cool to watch.
And Mike Daggs, the tight end with 329 yards. We saw him last week, a great tight end, top 5 in the league. Pratchard from Vancouver, almost 300 yards. Gossett from Jacksonville, 276 yards. And Chisholm from Atlanta, who had a very good week last week, but still in the top 5, 249 yards. And then Mike Daggs is leading the league in touchdowns at 4, and there are multiple players at 3. Now we go to the defensive side of the ball. Drew Hamilton leading the league with 22 tackles, champion with 19 tackles from Portland, and there are multiple players with 18 tackles. The sacks is what interested me because Norwood, 2 games of the season, 7 sacks, a great defensive lineman.
Yeah, I think the defense is leading the way for Jacksonville 2-0. They've only given up 28 points in the first 2 games, and that kind of goes to that defense and the pressure they're putting on the opposing quarterbacks and stopping the run at the same time.
Rorken from Lone Star, they have 4 sacks. Duffy from Queen City has 4 sacks. Lewis from Lone Star, so 2 Lone Stars in the top 5. He has 3.5, and multiple players, including our own Mar Rivers, who had 3 sacks this week. They round out the list with a total of 3. Then we got interceptions. Arthur, who had 3 interceptions last week, still leading the league. Multiple players with 2, and there are multiple players with 1 TD for touchdown. Now here's the interesting fact. These weren't up last week, but now they are. So this is the league leaders by team, offensive and defensive. Baltimore leading the league. Obviously a great game this week. That's why they're up top. Same with Mexico City, who's had 2 weeks of their offense producing very well. Chicago, we're 3rd in the league, which I found interesting because, we threw for 400 yards last week, but it seems obviously it was a bit more balanced, but being top 5 in the league is it feels great.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those yards did come at the tail end of week 1 in Mexico City. But like I said, our the offense, if we have a balanced type of offense, you're looking at a top offense, and I'm not just talking a Chicago player. You're looking at a top offense in the entire league. 875 is big. However, that may not be us come week 6, week 7.
Denver and Atlanta rounding out the list. Then defense, Jacksonville and Fort Worth tied. You name Fort Worth your team to watch, even though they're 1-1. Both defenses really playing well.
Yeah, you see us, we're 3rd.
Yes, 3rd.
And listen, once again, similar to our offense getting those big yards in week 1, I think our defense kind of came back to life on Monday night against Tulsa, and we top defense in the league right now. We see it here. Big things ahead for Chicago Wildcats.
Yeah, and obviously you can't change the past, but if you take away those 2 plays by Manning, it looks a lot better for Chicago on defense, but still, with only allowing 602 yards so far, 3rd in the league, that's great. And rounding out the list, Arizona with 609 yards, and Lone Star, who has a very good defense, 618. And those are the top team stats leaders. So I'm looking forward to week 3. What are your keys to success for beating St. Louis?
I think the big thing with us, keep establishing the running game, keep everything balanced. Running game leads into the passing game. And on defense, we have to keep pinning our ears back and going to the quarterback. The other thing about our defense, too, we stopped the run really well against Tulsa on Monday. I think we have to continue that as well. If we get the pressure and start kind of wearing down those offensive linemen, the running game won't be able to do anything. So I think the big thing will be balance offense and defense, just keep attacking constantly.
Yeah, and on defense, Javier Vasquez is only going to be in his 3rd game. So if you get pressure to him, you're going to make him see ghost. And that's what you got to do. You got to put pressure, keep hitting him, keep knocking him on the ground, do whatever it takes to get him off his rhythm. And if you stop the run and force him to pass while he's under pressure, look for a couple interceptions this week by Hoff and the other great cornerbacks on this team.
It's kind of like what I said with us against Mexico City. When they knew that we had the pass, they were like, okay, go get them.
Yep.
And they got A.T. King with Flott. If we're able to shut the running game down, get up early, and make it a passing game, pin our ears back and go to the quarterback, and I feel like that would kind of make them one-dimensional and make it a lot easier for us on defense to stop them, get interceptions, get fumbles, start turning the ball over, and create chaos on the defensive end of the
ball. Do you have a score prediction for this game?
I'm going to say, I think I was close this week with the prediction I had last week. I think I said 28-24 or something weird like that. I'm going to go, I think this might be a defensive game. I'm going to go 2017 in favor of Chicago.
Yeah, I played for Brian Dynasty. I'm going to give him a little credit this week. I think he's going to have a decent game. I'm going to go 24-17 to 14. Chicago, though. They only scored 14, but I think he's going to have another bounce back game this week. But if we get pressure, he's going to be in a world of trouble. I'm Ben Warner. Khalil Thompson, thank you for episode 2. We'll see you next week.
See ya.